My name is Janet, and I'm 58 years old. I've been a widow for 3 years now, ever since my dear husband Frank passed away from a sudden heart attack. I live alone in our four-bedroom house in the suburbs of Ohio, the same house where we raised our son Marcus. After Frank died, I thought family was all I had left. I trusted my son and daughter-in-law completely, always ready to help when they needed it. I believed that's what good mothers do, what good grandmothers do. But I never imagined that my kindness, my willingness to help, would be twisted and used against me in the most heartbreaking way. Before I tell you what happened on that awful Tuesday morning, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button if you've ever trusted someone too much, only to have it backfire. Subscribe to hear more real-life stories about family betrayal and finding your strength. Now let me tell you about the day my son showed me exactly who he really was. Living alone after 32 years of marriage wasn't something I ever prepared for. Frank and I had built our life together in this house, watching our neighborhood change from young families to a mix of retirees and new couples. The house felt enormous without him. 4 bedrooms that once echoed with Marcus's childhood laughter, now mostly silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the grandfather clock. Frank loved so much. Marcus is 32 now, works at a local insurance company, making decent money, though nothing spectacular. He married Stephanie 3 years before Frank passed away, right around the time their daughter Emma was born. Stephanie used to work in marketing for a small firm downtown, but she quit after Emma arrived, saying she wanted to be a full-time mother. I respected that choice. I had done the same thing when Marcus was little. Emma is 5 now, a bright, curious little girl with Frank's eyes and Marcus's stubborn streak. She's the light of my life, my only grandchild, and probably the main reason I stayed so involved with Marcus and Stephanie's household affairs. Every Sunday, they would come over for dinner. I'd spend Saturday preparing pot roast or fried chicken, making sure to have Emma's favorite mac and cheese and chocolate chip cookies. Those Sundays kept me going through the loneliest days. But somewhere along the way, helping became expected rather than appreciated. It started small after Frank's funeral. Marcus mentioned they were struggling with Emma's daycare costs, so I offered to help. $500 a month seemed reasonable for my granddaughter's education. Then came the groceries when Stephanie complained about rising food prices. I started buying extra during my weekly shopping trips, dropping bags off at their house every Wednesday. Gas money became a regular request. Stephanie would call saying they were short on funds until Marcus's next paycheck. Could I help with $40 or $60 for gas? Of course I could. Family helps family, right? That's what Frank would have wanted. He always said Marcus was a good boy who just needed to find his way in the world. My house sits on Maple Street, a quiet neighborhood where most of us have lived for decades. Mrs. Patterson next door has been my friend for 20 years. Mr. Rodriguez across the street always waves when he's working in his garden. It's the kind of place where people still know each other's names, where packages get delivered to neighbors when you're not home, where everyone watches out for everyone else. The house itself is Frank's legacy to me. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a big kitchen with the island he installed himself, and a living room with the stone fireplace where we spent countless winter evenings. The master bedroom still smells faintly of his cologne Old Spice, though I haven't had the heart to wash the pillowcase he used. The guest bedrooms stay empty most of the time, though I always hoped Marcus and his family might stay over occasionally. They never did. Our backyard was Frank's pride and joy. 1/4 acre of perfectly maintained grass, flower beds along the fence, and the vegetable garden where he grew tomatoes, peppers, and green beans every summer. I still tend to it, though, not with his expertise. It gives me something to do with my hands while my mind wanders to memories of better times. The financial help I provided Marcus and Stephanie never felt burdensome at first. My pension from the school district where I worked as a secretary for 28 years, combined with Frank's life insurance and Social Security, gave me enough to live comfortably. We had been careful with money, our whole marriage saving for retirement, paying off the house early. I thought I was blessed to be able to help my son's young family get established. Looking back, I can see how the dynamic shifted gradually. Marcus stopped calling just to chat. When he did call, there was usually a request attached. Stephanie became friendlier, but only when she needed something. She started asking questions about my finances, wondering aloud how much the house was worth mentioning, how nice it must be to not have to worry about money. The loneliness after losing Frank was crushing some days. I'd wake up expecting to make 2 cups of coffee, then remember I only needed one. I'd catch myself saving funny stories to tell him when he got home from his workshop, only to realize he'd never be coming home again. Marcus and Stephanie's regular presence in my life felt like a lifeline. I needed them as much as they seemed to need my help. Emma became my anchor during those dark months. Her innocent questions about Grandpa Frank, her excitement over our baking sessions, her sleepy hugs when she'd fall asleep on my couch during Sunday dinners. I would have done anything for that little girl, and Marcus and Stephanie knew it. They knew exactly which buttons to push. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I woke up at 6:30, made my single cup of coffee, and settled into my morning routine of reading the local newspaper while listening to the birds outside my kitchen window. The weather was perfect for early October, crisp and clear with that hint of autumn that makes you want to spend time outdoors. I decided to work in the garden, deadheading the last of the summer flowers and preparing the beds for winter. I was on my knees next to the rose bushes, wearing Frank's old gardening gloves that were too big for my hands when my phone rang inside the house. The ringtone echoed through the open kitchen window. I considered ignoring it, enjoying the peaceful morning, but something made me get up and hurry inside. Maybe it was Mother's intuition, or maybe I was just lonely enough that any human contact felt important. The caller ID showed Stephanie's number. I glanced at the clock, 10:30 in the morning, unusual for her to call so early. Stephanie typically slept until 9 or 10, then spent an hour getting ready before starting her day. Emma would be at kindergarten by now, so I wondered what could be urgent enough for Stephanie to call me. "Hello, sweetheart," I answered, using the warm tone I'd adopted from my daughter-in-law over the years. "Janet, thank God you answered." Stephanie's voice was high-pitched, stressed in a way that immediately put me on alert. "I need your help. It's Emma." My heart jumped into my throat. "What's wrong with Emma? Is she hurt?" "She woke up this morning complaining about her stomach, and now she's got a fever. I think it might be appendicitis or something serious. I need to get her to urgent care right away, but my card got declined at the pharmacy when I tried to buy children's Tylenol. The system must be down or something. Can you please help me out?" The urgency in her voice convinced me immediately. Emma's health was never something to take chances with. I'd heard horror stories about appendicitis in children, how quickly things could turn dangerous if not treated promptly. "Of course, honey. Do you need me to come over there, or do you want to meet somewhere?" "Could you just bring your credit card over here? I don't want to waste time loading Emma into the car more than necessary. She's really not feeling well, and Marcus is at work. I called him, but he's in meetings all morning and can't leave. I'll be right there. Don't worry about anything. We'll take care of Emma." I hung up and immediately grabbed my purse, checking to make sure my credit card was inside. This wasn't the first time I'd helped with unexpected medical expenses. Last year, Emma had an ear infection that required urgent care on a weekend when their regular pediatrician was closed. The year before, Marcus had cut his hand badly enough to need stitches. Family emergencies happen, and family helps family. That's what we do. The drive to their house took exactly 18 minutes, a route I'd memorized from years of regular visits. They lived in a newer subdivision about 20 minutes away from my neighborhood in one of those cookie-cutter developments where all the houses look similar but cost twice what my house had when Frank and I bought it 30 years ago. Their mortgage payment was probably double what mine had been, but that wasn't my business. As I pulled into their driveway, I noticed Marcus's car wasn't there, confirming he was indeed at work. Stephanie's minivan sat in its usual spot, looking like it needed a wash. I hurried to the front door, my mind focused entirely on Emma's welfare. But when Stephanie opened the door, something felt off immediately. She was dressed nicely, wearing makeup and an outfit that didn't look like stay-at-home mom clothes for dealing with a sick child. Her hair was styled, and she was wearing earrings and a necklace. This wasn't the appearance of a frazzled mother dealing with a medical emergency. "Where's Emma?" I asked, stepping inside and looking around the living room. "Oh, she's feeling a little better now. She's playing in the backyard. Kids, you know how they are. One minute they're dying, the next minute they're fine." Through the sliding glass door, I could see Emma running around the backyard chasing their neighbor's cat along the fence line. She was laughing, clearly enjoying herself, showing no signs of illness or stomach pain. No fever, no lethargy, no indication of the medical emergency Stephanie had described on the phone. "She looks completely healthy." I observed confusion creeping into my voice. "Well, you know how these things come and go with kids. But I still think I should get some medicine for her just in case it comes back. Prevention is better than cure, right? And I'm still having problems with my card." Could I borrow yours just for today? I'll pay you back as soon as Marcus gets his next check. Something about the situation felt strange, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what. Emma did look perfectly fine running around with the energy of a normal 5-year-old. But Stephanie seemed genuinely concerned, and medical issues with children could be unpredictable. Maybe Emma had been sick earlier and was just feeling better temporarily. Of course, I said, pulling my credit card from my wallet, but you'll need the PIN number. Oh, right, I forgot about that. What is it? I gave her the 4-digit code, the same one I'd been using for years, Frank's birth month and day. Just be careful with spending, okay, and call me if Emma gets worse. You're such a lifesaver, Janet. I don't know what we'd do without you. As I drove home, a nagging feeling settled in my stomach. Emma had looked completely healthy, not even slightly under the weather, and Stephanie's explanation about the card being declined seemed odd. Banks don't usually have system-wide problems that would affect just one person's card, but I pushed the doubts away. Maybe I was being overly suspicious. Maybe Stephanie was just being a cautious mother wanting to be prepared in case Emma's symptoms returned. Still, something felt different this time. Something felt wrong, and that feeling was about to prove absolutely correct. 2 hours later, I was back in my kitchen making a late lunch when curiosity got the better of me. The nagging feeling about the morning's events hadn't gone away, and I decided to check my bank account online to see if Stephanie had made any purchases yet. I logged into my account expecting to see maybe $30 or $40 in pharmacy charges for children's medicine. What I saw made my blood run cold. 3 transactions had posted to my account in the last hour and a half. The first was from Best Buy for $1,200. The second was from a designer outlet store for $800. The third was a cash withdrawal from an ATM for $600. $600 total spent in less than 2 hours. I stared at the computer screen, reading the transactions over and over, hoping I was misunderstanding something. But there was no mistake. My credit card, the one I'd given to Stephanie for Emma's medical emergency, had been used for what was clearly a shopping spree. My hands shaking, I immediately called Stephanie's number. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail again. On the 3rd attempt, the call went straight to voicemail without even ringing, which meant she had either turned off her phone or declined my call. Stephanie, this is Janet. I need you to call me back immediately. There are some very large charges on my card that we need to discuss. I hung up and sat in my kitchen chair, trying to make sense of what was happening. $2,600. That was more than my monthly pension check. That was more than I typically spent in 3 months on everything combined. And it had been spent in under 2 hours by someone who claimed to need help buying medicine for a sick child. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not just the money, though, that was significant, but the elaborate lie, the fake emergency involving Emma, the tears in Stephanie's voice, the manipulation of my love for my granddaughter to get access to my credit card. It was calculated and cruel in a way that took my breath away. I grabbed my car keys and drove back to Marcus and Stephanie's house, my mind racing with anger and disbelief. I needed to see those purchases with my own eyes. I needed to understand how someone could lie so convincingly about a child's health to steal money from their own family. When I arrived, Stephanie's minivan was still in the driveway, but now there were several shopping bags visible through the rear window. I walked up to the front door and knocked firmly. Stephanie answered, looking slightly flustered, as if I'd interrupted something. Oh, hi, Janet. What brings you back? I think you know exactly what brings me back. May I come in? She hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. As I walked into the living room, I immediately noticed the enormous new television mounted on the wall where their old 32-inch TV used to hang. This new one had to be at least 65 inches with a price tag that would easily account for the Best Buy charge. Shopping bags from expensive stores were scattered around the living room. Through one partially opened bag, I could see clothing with designer labels. Another bag contained what looked like expensive shoes. On the coffee table sat a brand new iPad still in its packaging. Where's Emma? I asked. She's in the backyard playing with her new tablet. Her new tablet? Well, yes, it's educational, for learning. I walked to the sliding door and looked outside. Emma was indeed playing with a new iPad, completely absorbed in some colorful game. She looked perfectly healthy, exactly as she had that morning when Stephanie claimed she was sick. Stephanie, we need to talk. About what? but her defensive tone told me she knew exactly what. About the $2,600 you spent on my credit card in the last 2 hours. About the lie you told me about Emma being sick. About the shopping spree you went on with money you stole from me. Her face flushed red, but instead of apologizing or showing remorse, she became defensive and angry. Stole. That's a strong word, Janet. You gave me the card willingly. And Emma did feel sick this morning. Just because she's feeling better now doesn't mean I was lying. Kids bounce back quickly. And the television and all these shopping bags and the $600 in cash. Was that all for Emma's medicine too? Look, we have bills to pay. Emma needs educational tools for school. I have job interviews coming up and need professional clothes. You said yourself that family helps family. The audacity of her response left me speechless for a moment. She was actually trying to justify stealing from me by claiming it was still helping family. I never said family steals from family, Stephanie. And you didn't ask for help with bills or clothes. You lied about a medical emergency involving my granddaughter. Well, maybe I had to lie because you would have said no if I just asked for money for things we actually needed. You're absolutely right. I would have said no because $2,600 for shopping is not something anyone needs, especially not money taken through lies and manipulation. That's when Emma came running in from the backyard, holding her new iPad and smiling brightly. Grandma Janet, look what Mommy bought me. It has all my favorite games. My heart broke looking at my granddaughter's innocent excitement. She had no idea that her new toy had been purchased with money stolen from me through lies about her being sick. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I managed to say with a forced smile. We went on such a fun shopping trip today. Mommy bought lots of pretty clothes and Daddy got a new TV. She said we could afford it because you were helping us. The innocent honesty of a 5-year-old had just confirmed everything I suspected. This hadn't been an emergency purchase or a moment of panic. It had been a planned shopping trip using my money funded by an elaborate lie. Stephanie's face went white as Emma unknowingly revealed the truth of their morning activities. Emma, why don't you go back outside and play? But I want to show Grandma all the new games. Outside now. I knelt down to Emma's level. Grandma needs to talk to your mommy for a few minutes, okay, sweetheart? Keep playing with your new tablet. As Emma skipped back outside, I stood up and faced Stephanie. The betrayal was complete now, confirmed by the innocent words of the child they had used to manipulate me. How could you involve Emma in your lie? How could you use my love for my granddaughter to steal from me? I didn't steal anything. You gave me the card. Under false pretenses, you lied about Emma being sick. Well, maybe if you weren't so stingy with money, I wouldn't have to make up emergencies. The mask was completely off now. This wasn't about Emma's health or family emergency. This was about entitlement and greed, plain and simple. That's when I heard Marcus's car in the driveway. My son was coming home, and I was about to find out if he knew about his wife's deception or if he was about to be as shocked as I was. Marcus walked through the front door with the confidence of someone coming home to a normal evening. But that confidence evaporated the moment he saw my face and the shopping bags scattered around his living room. His eyes went immediately to the new television, then to me, then to Stephanie, who was standing with her arms crossed in a defensive posture. What's going on here? He asked, though his tone suggested he might already know. Your wife used my credit card to go on a $2,600 shopping spree, I said calmly, after lying to me about Emma having a medical emergency. Marcus looked at Stephanie, and I watched for his reaction. Would he be shocked? Angry, apologetic. What I saw instead was something that chilled me to the bone. He didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed that they'd been caught. Mom, let's just calm down and talk about this reasonably, he said, setting his briefcase down and loosening his tie. I am calm, Marcus. I'm calmly telling you that your wife lied to me, manipulated me, and stole from me, and I'm calmly waiting for you to explain how this is reasonable. Look, we've been struggling financially. You know that. Stephanie probably didn't handle this the right way, but you said yourself that you wanted to help family. I said I wanted to help family in emergencies. I didn't say I wanted to fund your shopping sprees through elaborate lies. Stephanie jumped in her voice, rising to that same stressed pitch she'd used on the phone that morning. Your card stopped working at the grocery store this afternoon. I was so embarrassed. People were staring at me like I was some kind of deadbeat. My card stopped working because I called the bank and canceled it after I saw the fraudulent charges. I replied evenly. Fraudulent. Marcus's voice took on an edge I'd never heard before. Mom, that's a strong accusation. It's the accurate term for using someone's credit card under false pretenses. You gave her the card willingly because she told me Emma was sick and needed medical care. And Emma was sick this morning, Stephanie interjected. Emma was perfectly fine this morning, just like she is now. And even if she had been sick, that doesn't explain the television, the designer clothes, or the cash withdrawal. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from his childhood when he was frustrated about being caught doing something wrong. But instead of the shame I expected to see, his face was hardening into something I didn't recognize. Mom, what's your online banking password? The question caught me completely off guard. Excuse me, your online banking password. This whole thing is ridiculous. We need to sort out these charges, and I need to see your account to understand what happened. I stared at my son, barely recognizing the man standing in front of me. You want my banking password? Marcus, are you serious right now? We're family, Mom. We should be able to trust each other with this kind of thing. If there's really been some kind of mistake, I can help you fix it. There's been no mistake. Your wife spent $2,600 of my money in 2 hours on shopping, and now you're demanding access to my bank account. I'm trying to help resolve this situation. His voice was getting louder, and he took a step closer to me. For the first time in my life, I felt intimidated by my own son. The only thing that needs resolving is getting my money back and getting a sincere apology for the lies and manipulation. That's not happening, Stephanie snapped. We spent that money on things we actually needed. Emma needed educational tools. I needed professional clothes for job interviews. We needed a decent television because ours was broken. Your television was working fine this morning. Well, it was old and small. Emma couldn't see her educational programs properly. The justifications were getting more ridiculous by the minute, but what shocked me even more was Marcus's attitude. Instead of being appalled by his wife's behavior, he seemed to be supporting it. Mom, you're sitting on all this money doing nothing with it, Marcus said, his tone becoming more aggressive. Dad left you well taken care of. You own your house outright. You get pension and Social Security. Meanwhile, we're struggling to raise your granddaughter and keep up with bills. Your father left me enough to live comfortably, not to fund your lifestyle choices. And struggling families don't buy 65-inch televisions and designer handbags. We work hard. We deserve nice things too. Then work harder and buy them with your own money. The conversation was spiraling into territory I'd never imagined having with my son. Stephanie moved closer to Marcus, and they presented a united front against me that broke my heart. You're being selfish, Mom, Marcus continued. Dad would be ashamed of how you're acting right now. He always said family comes first, and here you are acting like we stole from you when all we did was accept help you offered. The invocation of Frank's memory hit me like a slap across the face. How dare they use my dead husband's memory to justify their theft and manipulation? Frank had been a generous man, but he'd also been honest and hardworking. He would never have tolerated this kind of deception and entitlement. Don't you dare bring your father into this, I said, my voice deadly quiet. Frank would be ashamed, all right, but not of me. He'd be ashamed that his son learned to lie and steal and manipulate his own mother. We didn't steal anything, Stephanie shrieked. You lied about Emma being sick to get my credit card, then spent $2,600 on shopping. What would you call that? Marcus stepped even closer, his voice dropping to a threatening tone I'd never heard from him before. I'm calling it family helping family, and I'm telling you that you're going to stop making a big deal out of this, or there are going to be consequences. Are you threatening me, Marcus? I'm telling you how things are going to be. In that moment, I saw my son clearly for the first time in years. This wasn't a good man who had made a mistake or been led astray by his wife. This was a man who felt entitled to my money, who was willing to intimidate his own mother to get what he wanted, who had probably been manipulating me for years while I was too lonely and grief-stricken to see it clearly. The man standing in front of me, red-faced and aggressive, demanding my banking passwords and threatening consequences if I didn't comply with his demands, was not the son I thought I had raised. This was a stranger wearing my son's face, and I was done being intimidated. I straightened my spine, looked my son directly in the eyes, and said the words that would change our relationship forever. Your father would be ashamed of both of you. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus's face went from red to purple, and Stephanie's mouth dropped open. They had expected me to back down, to cave under pressure like I probably had countless times before without realizing it. Let me explain something to both of you about my financial situation. I continued, my voice steady and firm. I live on a fixed income. My pension from 28 years of working at the school district is $1,500 a month. Social Security gives me another $1,200. Your father's life insurance policy and our savings account give me enough to maintain the house and live comfortably, but not extravagantly. I walked over to my purse and pulled out the bank statement I always carried. I budget every month. Groceries, utilities, house maintenance, car expenses, medical costs, and yes, helping family when there are genuine emergencies. $2,600 is more than I spend on myself in 3 months. Marcus started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. When I help family, it comes out of my carefully planned budget. It means I don't buy something I wanted, or I postpone home repairs, or I skip my own little treats to make sure I can help when you need it. I do this gladly because I love you and I love Emma. Stephanie was shifting uncomfortably, but her expression remained defiant. But what you did today wasn't asking family for help. It was theft through fraud. You deliberately lied about Emma's health to manipulate my emotions and get access to my money. Then, you went on a shopping spree buying luxury items that nobody needs. A 65-inch television is not a necessity. Designer clothes are not a necessity. $600 in cash for who knows what is not a necessity. We have a right to nice things too, Stephanie shouted. You have a right to anything you can afford with your own money. You do not have a right to steal from me to get it. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. What are you doing? Marcus demanded. Calling the bank to report unauthorized use of my credit card and to change all my passwords and security codes. You can't do that. Watch me. Marcus moved closer, his body language clearly intended to intimidate me. Mom, if you make that call, you're going to damage our relationship permanently. Is money really more important to you than family? Money isn't more important than family, Marcus, but honesty is, trust is, respect is, and you've shown me tonight that you have none of those things for me. I completed the call to my bank, speaking clearly and calmly, while Marcus and Stephanie glared at me. I reported the fraudulent charges, requested a new card, and changed all my access codes. The bank representative was professional and sympathetic, explaining that they would investigate the charges and likely reverse them since I was reporting fraud. There, I said, hanging up the phone. It's done. The card is canceled. The charges are being investigated as fraud, and you no longer have access to any of my accounts. You just destroyed our family over money. Stephanie was crying now, but they were angry tears, not remorseful ones. I didn't destroy anything. You two destroyed it the moment you decided to lie to me and steal from me, the moment you decided to use my love for Emma as a weapon against me. Marcus's anger reached a boiling point. Fine. You want to play hardball? Then don't expect any more visits. Don't expect to see Emma. Don't expect us to include you in our lives anymore. If that's your choice, then so be it. But understand this. I will not be manipulated, threatened, or stolen from by anyone, including my own son. Emma appeared in the sliding doorway, drawn by the raised voices. Why is everyone yelling? My heart broke seeing her confused, frightened face. This innocent child was going to suffer because of her parents' greed and my refusal to enable it any longer. Everything's fine, sweetheart, I said gently. Grandma just needs to go home now. Can I come with you? The hope in her voice nearly broke my resolve, but I knew I had to be strong. Not tonight, baby girl. You stay with Mommy and Daddy. I gathered my purse and walked toward the front door. Marcus and Stephanie stood together, presenting their united front of righteous indignation, as if they were the wronged parties in this situation. This is your choice, Mom, Marcus called after me. You're choosing money over family. I turned around one last time and looked at him sadly. No, son. You chose money over family the moment you supported your wife's lies and theft. I'm choosing self-respect. And with that, I walked out of their house and drove home, leaving behind not just $2,600 in fraudulent charges, but illusions I'd held about my son for 32 years. The weeks that followed were among the loneliest of my life, even lonelier than the first months after Frank died. At least then, I'd had the comfort of knowing that Marcus loved and respected me, that I had family who cared about me as more than just a source of money. My new daily routine developed slowly. I'd wake up, make my single cup of coffee, and sit in the kitchen wondering if my phone would ring. It never did. No calls from Marcus attempting to reconcile, no messages from Stephanie apologizing for her behavior, no contact at all except for one heartbreaking incident. 2 weeks after our confrontation, Emma's school called me. I was still listed as an emergency contact, and Emma had fallen on the playground and needed to be picked up. The secretary explained that they couldn't reach either parent and asked if I could come get her. I arrived at the school to find Emma sitting in the nurse's office with a scraped knee and tear-streaked cheeks. When she saw me, she ran into my arms like I was her salvation. "Grandma Janet, I knew you'd come." "Of course I came, sweetheart. Are you okay?" "My knee hurts, but I'm okay now that you're here." The nurse explained that the scrape wasn't serious, just needed cleaning and a bandage. As I signed Emma out, she chatted about her friends and her teacher, completely oblivious to the family drama that had erupted around her. "Can we go to your house, Grandma? I want to see Grandpa Frank's workshop." "I need to take you home, baby girl. Your parents are probably worried about you." "Mommy said you don't want to see us anymore because you're mad about money." My heart shattered into a million pieces. They were already poisoning my granddaughter against me, making me the villain in their story. "Grandma is not mad at you, Emma. Grandma loves you more than anything in the world. Then why don't you come over anymore? How do you explain adult betrayal and financial manipulation to a 5-year-old? How do you tell a child that her parents are liars and thieves without destroying her sense of security?" "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, sweetheart, but it has nothing to do with how much I love you." When I dropped Emma off at home, Stephanie came to the door but wouldn't make eye contact with me. She took Emma inside without a word of thanks for picking her up from school, or a word of explanation for why they hadn't answered their phones when their daughter was hurt. That night, I called the school and asked to be removed as an emergency contact. It was too painful to be needed only when no one else was available to have my love for Emma used as a convenience when her parents couldn't be bothered to fulfill their responsibilities. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. Mrs. Patterson next door noticed that I wasn't having my usual Sunday visitors anymore and started inviting me over for coffee. Through her, I met other people in the neighborhood I'd known for years but never really connected with. Mr. Rodriguez, the widower across the street, had been alone for 5 years since his wife died. We started having conversations over the fence while working in our gardens, sharing stories about our spouses and the challenges of living alone. He had 3 adult children who lived in different states and visited rarely. He understood the loneliness in a way that surprised me. Patterson suggested I try the senior center downtown where they had book clubs, volunteer opportunities, and social activities. At first, I resisted, feeling like admitting I needed social activities was acknowledging that I was truly alone. But eventually, loneliness won over pride. The senior center introduced me to Dorothy, a 62-year-old widow who had lost her husband to cancer 2 years ago, and Harold, a 67-year-old retired high school teacher whose wife had moved to assisted living due to dementia. We formed an unlikely trio meeting for coffee every Thursday and attending various center activities together. Dorothy had her own horror stories about adult children who saw her as a piggy bank rather than a person. Her daughter had moved back home after a divorce and expected Dorothy to provide free childcare and financial support while contributing nothing to household expenses. Harold's son had tried to convince him to sell his house and give the money to help with his grandson's college tuition. We supported each other through the difficulties of setting boundaries with adult children who felt entitled to our resources. We shared strategies for building meaningful lives that didn't revolve around being needed by ungrateful family members. 3 weeks after the credit card incident, Marcus finally called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Mom." His voice was subdued, lacking the anger from our last conversation. "Hello, Marcus. I wanted to call and see how you're doing." "I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking." There was a long pause. "Look, maybe things got a little heated the other day. Maybe we can talk about this like adults." "I'm listening." "Stephanie feels bad about the misunderstanding with your credit card." "It wasn't a misunderstanding, Marcus. It was fraud." "Okay, maybe she didn't handle it the right way, but you have to understand the pressure we're under financially. We're struggling to make ends meet, and it's hard to ask for help when you feel like you might be judged." "So the solution was to lie about Emma being sick." "She was trying to protect your feelings. She knew you'd want to help if it was about Emma's health." The manipulation was continuing even now. He was trying to reframe theft as consideration for my feelings. "Marcus, I want you to listen to me very carefully. What Stephanie did was criminal. She committed fraud. She lied. She stole, and then both of you tried to intimidate me when I discovered it. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a miscommunication. This was a deliberate criminal act. Are you going to press charges? I haven't decided yet. The bank is investigating, and they'll make their own determination about involving law enforcement. Another long pause. What do you want from us? I want honesty. I want respect. I want you to acknowledge that what you did was wrong instead of trying to justify it or minimize it. And if we do that, then we can start rebuilding trust slowly over time. But Marcus, things will never go back to the way they were before. The days of unlimited financial help are over. The days of me being a pushover are over. That seems harsh. What's harsh is lying to your mother about your daughter being sick in order to steal her money. He hung up without saying goodbye, but something in his tone told me this wasn't over. He was testing the waters, seeing if enough time had passed for me to soften my position. When he realized I hadn't budged, he decided to try a different approach. That approach came in the form of social media posts from Stephanie. Mutual friends started asking me why I wasn't seeing my granddaughter anymore. Stephanie had posted several pictures of Emma looking sad with captions about how much she missed her grandmother who had cut them out of her life over money. The manipulation was continuing, but now it was public. Stephanie was trying to use community pressure and public shaming to force me back into compliance. She was painting herself as the victim of a heartless grandmother who cared more about money than family. But I was no longer the same woman who had handed over her credit card based on a fabricated emergency. I was no longer willing to be manipulated, stolen from, or publicly shamed into enabling bad behavior. I was learning to choose my own peace over their convenience, and that choice was about to pay off in ways I never expected. 6 months later, my life looked completely different than it had during those painful weeks immediately following the credit card incident. The loneliness I'd expected to be permanent had been replaced by a rich social life built around genuine connections rather than obligations and manipulation. Dorothy Harold and I had become genuine friends, meeting not just for our weekly coffee, but for movies, community events, and holiday gatherings. We'd started a small book club that met at my house twice a month, bringing together 8 other people from the senior center who became an extended family of choice. My garden had never looked better. Mr. Rodriguez and I had started sharing tools and expertise, creating an informal neighborhood beautification project that had other residents joining in. Working in the soil, planting seasonal plantings, and watching things grow had become therapeutic in ways I hadn't expected. The volunteer work at the local literacy center, something Dorothy had introduced me to, gave me a sense of purpose that had been missing since Frank died. Teaching adults to read reminded me that I had valuable skills and experience that could make a real difference in people's lives. Most surprisingly, I'd started taking art classes at the community college, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for during my working years or while I was taking care of Frank. Watercolor painting turned out to be a natural talent I never knew I possessed. My financial situation had also stabilized in ways that surprised me. Without the constant drain of Marcus and Stephanie's emergencies, my budget had breathing room I hadn't experienced in years. I was able to save money, make home improvements I'd been postponing, and even plan a small vacation to visit Frank's sister in Colorado. The bank had indeed determined that Stephanie's use of my credit card constituted fraud, and they'd reversed all the charges. I'd chosen not to press criminal charges, feeling that the public embarrassment and the loss of their financial safety net was punishment enough. But the real healing came from understanding that saying no doesn't make you cruel, it makes you honest. Frank had taught me many things during our marriage, but I'd somehow missed the lesson about standing up for myself. Maybe because with Frank, I'd never needed to. He'd always treated me with respect and consideration. That Tuesday morning in March, when Marcus finally called with what sounded like a genuine apology, I was in my garden planting the spring flower beds. "Mom, I need to talk to you about what happened last year." His voice was different this time. Smaller, less entitled, with a quality I recognized from his childhood when he'd done something wrong and knew it. "I'm listening, Marcus. I've been thinking about what you said that night about Dad being ashamed of me. You were right. I let Stephanie manipulate the situation, and I participated in manipulating you. What we did was wrong, and I'm sorry. What changed your mind? Honestly, We got into financial trouble without your safety net. Real trouble. We had to sell the TV, return most of the clothes Stephanie bought with your money, and I had to take a second job to catch up on bills. It forced me to grow up and take responsibility instead of expecting you to bail us out. And Stephanie and I are in marriage counseling. She's had to face some hard truths about her spending habits and her entitlement issues. She's gotten a part-time job, and we're both learning to live within our means. That sounds like positive changes. They are. But Mom, I realize now that I've been taking advantage of your generosity for years. Not just with the credit card thing, but with all the little requests for help, the assumption that you'd always be there to fix our problems. I turned you into an enabler instead of appreciating you as a mother. I enabled it by allowing it. You enabled it because you loved us. We took advantage of it because we were selfish. There was something in his voice that hadn't been there in years. Humility, genuine remorse, the recognition that he had been wrong rather than misunderstood. What are you asking for, Marcus? A chance to rebuild our relationship on honest terms. No more financial requests unless it's a genuine emergency that we can't handle ourselves. No more assumptions that you owe us anything. Just a chance to be your son again instead of someone who uses you. What about Emma? Emma misses you terribly. She asks about you constantly. I know we don't deserve it, but she'd love to see you again if you're willing. My heart ached thinking about my granddaughter. Despite everything that had happened, she was still the innocent victim in this situation. I'd like to see her too, but Marcus, things will be different now. I know, I hope they'll be better. They will be if you mean what you're saying. I do mean it, Mom. I know I have a lot to prove. The rebuilding process was slow and careful. Our first visit was at a neutral location, a park where Emma could play while Marcus and I talked. Emma's joy at seeing me was worth all the pain of the previous months. She'd grown so much in such a short time, and I realized how much I'd missed. Stephanie eventually joined these meetings, clearly uncomfortable, but making an effort to be respectful. Her apology, when it finally came, felt genuine, even if it wasn't eloquent. Janet, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I understand now how wrong it was. I was angry about our financial situation, and I took it out on you in the worst possible way. I'm getting help for my issues with money and entitlement, and I'm committed to being better. It wasn't perfect, and trust would take time to rebuild completely, but it was honest, which was more than I'd gotten from either of them in years. The boundaries I'd learned to set remained firm. No requests for money unless it was discussed in advance and agreed upon by all parties. No assumptions about my availability or resources. No using Emma as leverage for anything. But within those boundaries, we began to rebuild something that was healthier than what we'd had before. Sunday dinners resumed, but now they contributed food and helped with cooking and cleanup. Emma's birthday and Christmas gifts came from my heart rather than from guilt or manipulation. Looking back on that terrible Tuesday morning when Stephanie called claiming Emma was sick, I realized it was actually the beginning of my liberation. It forced me to see clearly what my relationships had become and gave me the motivation to demand better. I learned that love doesn't mean allowing yourself to be used, that generosity doesn't require accepting lies and manipulation, that family relationships need boundaries to be healthy, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Today, I choose my peace over their convenience, my self-respect over their approval, my honest assessment of situations over my desire to be needed. And that choice didn't cost me my family after all. It saved us all from a toxic dynamic that would have only gotten worse over time. My husband Frank always said that you teach people how to treat you by what you accept. I'd been teaching Marcus and Stephanie that I could be lied to, stolen from, and manipulated without consequences. When I finally changed the lesson plan, they had to learn new ways of relating to me. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick, but it was worth it. Because now when Emma hugs me and tells me she loves me, I know it's not because her parents need something from me. And when Marcus calls to check on me, I know it's because he genuinely cares, not because he's setting up his next request. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is allowing them to face the consequences of their choices. It forces growth that kindness alone never could. Have you ever found yourself being taken advantage of by family members who confused your love with an obligation to support their poor choices? Have you had to make the difficult decision to set boundaries with people you care about, even knowing it might temporarily damage your relationships. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our experiences helps others find the courage to stand up for themselves too. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real life stories about family relationships and finding your strength in difficult situations. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to say no, even to family, when they're asking you to compromise your values or your financial security. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that your worth isn't measured by how much you give to others, but by how much you respect yourself. Sometimes, loving someone means refusing to enable their worst behaviors, even when it hurts in the short term. Take care of yourselves. Set healthy boundaries. And remember that you deserve relationships built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not need and manipulation. Until next time, choose your peace over other people's convenience. You'll be amazed at how much your life can improve when you do.